The Grey Knights banished demons on Armageddon, then slaughtered the people they saved. Welcome, Initiate. The first war for Armageddon ended in victory. The demon Primarch Angron was banished back into the warp. The Space Wolves and the Grey Knights had done what the Imperium asks of no one else. They stood against a son of the Emperor and won. But then the Inquisition arrived. What followed has a name, but you will not find it in any official record. Few in the Imperium are even aware the incident occurred. The name was not given by the survivors, because there were very few. It was not given by historians, because no history was permitted.
It was given by the Grey Knights themselves, and they called it the Months of Shame.
Which raises a question the official record cannot answer. If the men who carried it out, the purest warriors the Emperor ever created, were ashamed, who wanted it done?
It came from Lord Inquisitor Ghesmei Kysnaros, an unaligned Inquisitor Lord, outside every Ordo, answerable to nobody, leaving no evidence trail. Aloof and inscrutable even to other Inquisitors, no reliable record of his life before Armageddon exists. Better to sterilize or kill millions on suspicion of taint than to eventually kill billions to stop it spreading. That was the reasoning. Logan Grimnar, Great Wolf of the Space Wolves, objected, and not privately. He broadcast his refusal to every Imperial ship in orbit so that no commander in that fleet could ever claim they had not heard it. Kysnaros ordered the first phase anyway. So the survivors were told they were being relocated, temporary camps, while their hive cities were cleansed of lingering corruption. That was reasonable, wasn't it? Someone would say it was even kind. Imperial stormtroopers guided them through the gates of the camps. The civilians noticed it was a labor camp where they were forcefully moved. Then they received a quick shot of sterilization. Nobody resisted nor screamed, because you can't resist something you have not been told is happening to you. An entire generation of Armageddon was ended with a needle and a lie. And the people holding the needle called it medicine, and the wolves watched it happen. On the ground, there were over 100,000 inquisitorial stormtroopers. Grimnar's warriors were overmatched, and they knew it, so they did nothing, because there was nothing to be done down there. Sadly, civilians were only the beginning of the containment. The Armageddon Steel Legion had fought the entire war protecting their home planet. They had seen everything, and they were already aboard their transports, loaded with witnesses, preparing to carry what they knew into the wider galaxy. I'm not talking about a new demonic invasion or a corrupted cultist cell, dear Initiate. These were the regiments that had just won the war. The Imperium didn't punish Armageddon for losing. It punished them for surviving. But Lord Inquisitor Ghesmei Kysnaros was liked by nobody. Not by the Space Wolves he provoked, not by the Grey Knights he commanded. Even the Inquisition that backed him did so, by every account, because he handed them an excuse to move against the Space Wolves, a chapter they had resented for centuries. The Grey Knights attached to the campaign disapproved openly. They were being used far outside their mission parameters. They exist to unmake demons, not to shoot loyal guardsmen out of orbit. And some of them, together with several Inquisitors, conspired to assassinate Kysnaros before the situation could worsen. They didn't do it because they were corrupted. The worst thing of all is that they were right to do it. The plot failed. So Grimnar did the only thing left to him. He ordered every remaining transport launched into orbit at once, all of them together in the same hour,
and he put a Space Wolves vessel between each transport and the Inquisition's guns under a single standing order. Do not fire back under any circumstance. Because the moment a Space Wolf shell struck an inquisitorial hull, the Inquisition would have the one thing it wanted most: the authority to declare Fenris renegade and burn it.
Kysnaros tried to reason with him. The exchange descended into insults and threats, and when reason failed, the Lord Inquisitor gave the order: fire on the escorts and fire on the transports. Before that order could be carried out, the warp opened. The Gilfarheim translated into the system with the rest of the Space Wolves fleet behind it. Overwhelming naval superiority, in orbit in an instant. Grimnar told Kysnaros to call off the attack, and the Inquisitor Lord, with the entire authority of the Imperium behind him, had no option but to obey. Most of the transports lived. Escorted by wolf ships, they reached the jump points and translated into the warp, carrying every witness the Inquisition had wanted silenced. The Grey Knights knew it was wrong. Inquisitors knew it was wrong. Men plotted murder over it. But shame stopped nobody. Only the wolves stopped it, and they stopped it by standing still and refusing to shoot. They won, dear Initiate. They saved them. And that is the moment this file stops being a story about heroes. Kysnaros did not stop. The transports were gone. Witnesses loose in the galaxy, carrying the secret of chaos and the secret of the Grey Knights out into the Imperium. Containment had failed in orbit. So containment widened. Any world that received an Armageddon survivor, any outpost that spoke to one, any ship that took one aboard, all of them were subject to Exterminatus, carried out by Grey Knights' vessels. Understand what that means, dear Initiate. The Space Wolves saved a few thousand men from the guns, and worlds died for it. Worlds that had done nothing but open a door. The Grey Knights burned them. The same men who had just plotted to murder their own Lord Inquisitor for exactly this. They knew, and they did it anyway. So, Kysnaros offered to negotiate. The Space Wolves came to the rendezvous under the laws of parley. Kysnaros' fleet opened fire on them as they arrived. 4 wolf ships destroyed. The Gilfarheim, the ship that had saved the transports, crippled. Grimnar teleported aboard to surrender himself. But he had another plan. He asked one question. Who gave the order to fire on ships under parley? Grandmaster Joros of the Grey Knights answered that he had. Grimnar killed him where he stood, aboard an inquisitorial vessel surrounded by the Inquisition's own men. The great Wolf of Fenris executed a Grand Master of the Grey Knights. And he was not the villain of that room. Now it was war. The wolves stopped absorbing fire. They hunted Inquisition and Grey Knight vessels wherever they found them, and showed no mercy to the crews aboard. And Kysnaros escalated one final time. He assembled an Imperial Navy battle fleet and set course for Fenris, the homeworld of a founding chapter, sons of a Primarch 10,000 years loyal. He arrived in orbit, prepared to conduct Exterminatus. Accept a penitent crusade, or your world burns. But Ghesmei Kysnaros died above Fenris, killed by Logan Grimnar. And then, something stopped the war. Bjorn, the Fell-Handed, the oldest living thing in the Imperium, a warrior who fought beside Leman Russ himself, woke and told Grimnar it was finished. The terms were these: no Inquisition vessel would ever appear above Fenris again.
The space wolves who had learned of the Grey Knights would not be mind-scrubbed, and the surviving people of Armageddon, the men Grimnar had shielded with his own ships, the men he had killed a Grand Master to protect, would be handed over to the Inquisition for mind-wiping, for sterilization, for dispersal across the galaxy so that no two of them would ever speak again. Grimnar accepted.
At the start of this transmission, I told you the popular story was wrong, that the Grey Knights were not the monsters of Armageddon. They were not. That is the entire horror of this file. The Illuminati broadcast network doesn't tell you what to think, but let me give you a final statement. The Grey Knights were ashamed. They named this thing after their own guilt. Inquisitors dissented. Men conspired to murder their own Lord Inquisitor to stop it, and every single one of them carried out their orders anyway. Shame is not refusal. Only one man refused. He broadcast his objection to every ship in orbit so that nobody could pretend they hadn't heard. He put his own vessels in the line of fire and forbade his brothers to shoot back. He watched the Gilferheim come out of the warp, and he saved them. He killed a Grand Master of the Grey Knights over them. He killed a Lord Inquisitor over them. And then, in orbit above his own world, with Bjorn the Fell-Handed watching, Logan Grimnar handed them over. Mind-wiped, sterilized, scattered across the galaxy so that no two survivors of Armageddon would ever meet again. He did not do it because he was corrupted, nor he was afraid. He did it because the price of refusing a second time was Fenris. And one world of strangers is not worth one world of his own. That is what the Imperium learned on Armageddon. It only needs to be patient and to raise the price of saying no until the price is a thing you love. The Grey Knights called it the months of shame, but they were not the only ones who should feel that way. Leave your assessment of this transmission below. The shame report is closed. But the network doesn't stop broadcasting. The next report is already waiting, dear Initiate, and what it contains is something the Administratum has been trying to bury for 10,000 years. If you are not yet a registered Initiate, the subscribe button is right there. The Council is watching who clicks it. Illuminati Broadcast Network, out.